So the truth is, bars, clubs, restaurants, and even larger venues are always trying to hire bands. That's what helps them run their business. But you're not getting hired because you don't have the things that they're looking for. And it's really about 7 things that they look for when they're trying to hire bands and musicians. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what they are so that you can 10x your chances of getting hired. Hey, and welcome to Music Space. Here we teach working musicians like you to monetize their craft. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to stay updated on new videos. Now, right before we get into this video, if you're a band, artist, or musician looking to make some serious passive income and grow a huge fan base, I'm advising all bands and artists and musicians like this to start a YouTube channel today. And that's because right now, YouTube continues to be the biggest growth opportunity for bands, artists, and musicians to gain a huge following and make lots of money. And because of this, I've created the YouTube QuickStart course. This course is specifically designed to get you up and running and making money and growing a huge fan base on YouTube really quickly and easily. And the best part is it's completely free and you can get instant access to it at the link in the description of this video. Now, the first thing these venues are looking for, especially the venues that pay a lot of money, is professionalism. And professionalism seems to be a huge problem with a lot of bands and musicians these days. They don't like to show up on time. They show up looking any kind of way. Their equipment is all shady and doesn't work. The sound system that they use, if they bring their own, is horrible. And they just have bad, personalities, and they're bad to work with. And these venues want to see or want you to show, again, especially when they're paying you lots of money, that you can be professional, that you can show up on time, that you can play like you're supposed to play or perform like you're supposed to perform and not take overly long breaks. Like you're supposed to perform like a 3-hour set and you take a break like 2 hours. I've actually seen bands do stuff like that. And it gets even worse where some bands and musicians get drunk and can't even perform and all of that type of stuff. It's absolutely crazy. And so another thing that these venues are looking for when they hire bands is that the bands that they hire and the musicians that they hire have some marketing skills. Now, I know I always talk about us musicians and bands are not marketers and we shouldn't be required to market anything or promote anything when clubs hire us. And that's still absolutely true. However, that does not mean that if you have some marketing skills and you're able to promote and get people to their venue, that you're not more valuable to them. When you have these marketing skills and you're able to promote shows and help bring notoriety to the venue that you're playing for, you become more valuable to that venue and the owner of that venue. So your ability to be able to get people into that venue or draw a crowd when you're performing or at any time is an asset to them, and that's something that they look for, which leads directly into the next thing that a lot of these venues like to see bands have, and that is a fan base. That just makes sense and goes right in line with the last tip of having marketing skills, right? When you have a fan base, when you have a dedicated fan base who follow you and who will come out to see you perform and play, that's an asset again to that venue. And the thing about it is, it doesn't even have to be like this huge fan base. Most of the venues and clubs and stuff that we bands tend to play in anyway are smaller, 100, 150 people type venues. So if you have a fan base of about 50, 60, 75 people even, that's a valuable asset to them. And as long as they're dedicated and as long as they'll come out and see you play and perform, that's something that you can use as leverage to get these clubs and venues to hire you. And it's absolutely something they look for. Now, the next thing is critically important and you don't want to miss it. Another thing that these venues look for bands and musicians to have is a solid repertoire. This is something that kills a lot of bands' chances of getting hired because they don't have a sort of diverse repertoire of music. All of their songs kind of sound the same. They play the same type of music over and over. It's just like all of this or all of that. And of course, there are exceptions if you're like a tribute band or something like that, where you do a certain artist's music and stuff like that. That's a little different. But generally speaking, you need to have a sort of diverse repertoire where you can play some dance stuff, some slow jam stuff, some rock and roll stuff, some classic music, classic 70s and 80s and 60s, along with the more current stuff. One thing I say all the time is that audiences in these venues They want to hear the type of stuff that they listen to or that they like on a regular basis. And as the entertainment at these venues, you need to be able to accommodate that. And another thing that these venues look for that almost no musicians ever think about is having technical ability and tech skills. And what I mean by that is a lot of these bar and club and venue owners are trying to save money where they can. And a lot of times what they like to do is not have to hire a tech person, a sound and light person to come in and sort of babysit the band, so to speak, which they should be doing that off top, but they try to save money and not do that. So if you as a band or a musician have those skills where you can run your own sound, with the sound provided in the club, you know how to work a console, you know how to work the lights and stuff like that for yourself, they look for that. That is an asset to have. And that also includes you as a band or musician having a sort of pristine sound yourself, having a tight performance where you're locked in, where you sound like you are a professional band. These are assets that these clubs and venues look for. And another thing that unfortunately a lot of bands and musicians don't tend to put thought into is having a good image. This is another thing that these venues want to see. Now, of course, I am talking about image as it pertains to aesthetics, like how you dress and things like that, like the uniformity of your band, but also like things like your uniqueness in how you do those things. Like what unique things do you have in your band that set you apart? Like the images that you put on the bass drum and stuff like that, like a logo. Do you have stuff like that? Do you have a particular way that you dress that is a little bit different than other bands that tend to do the same thing? And it can be stuff that's like really, really simple, like your entire band wears hats or something like that. Like it can be something really simple, but these venues do look for uniformity and sort of a uniqueness and sort of an originality when it comes to these bands and groups, because they don't want to be seeming like they hire the same bands over and over. That kind of gives them something to brag about. And something else that these venue owners look for that not a lot of musicians want to talk about, but that is having a social media presence. I mean, look, it's no coincidence that I always talk about YouTube and Instagram and these platforms, especially YouTube being a sort of growth platform for musicians to build a fan base and have a social media presence. These venues, I'm telling you, this is something that has become crucially important. Now, again, I'll say you don't have to have these things. I'm talking about the things that are going to greaten your chances. Again, as I said at the beginning, that are going to 10x your chances to get hired over other bands and venues that, have these type of things. I mean, your social media presence alone, literally just this one thing, can kind of trump all of the rest of the tips that I've given in this video. If you have a solid social media presence, your fans and stuff are engaging. First of all, that's the fan engagement that they look for. They'll be able to see that you post stuff and your professionalism and all of that. So it's one of these things that kind of trump the rest. So if you have that, you 10x your chances of getting hired. This is why I always talk about, especially in this new creator economy era, where bands and musicians should be focusing on building a fan base and growing a huge following and building a community around what they do. And again, YouTube, at least in my opinion, is the #1 platform that musicians should be getting involved in and growing a fan base on. And I've done a video to help you get started on YouTube, and you can check it out right here, right now.